let me just explain to you a little bit more about what happens further down the line. All right,
Yeah.
schools get some money into their budget for
Right.
special educational needs. They can
Yeah.
spend that however they choose.
Right.
When a child has an EHCP, so when that is, if your daughter gets an EHCP, the minute it's finalised,
Yeah.
the first £6,000 of her provision has to be funded from the school's SEN budget. It's the
Right.
same for every child with a EHCP.
Yeah.
So at the moment, they can use their SEN budget on what they want. They can choose. They can
Right.
choose to spend 2,000 on your daughter, 8,000 on your daughter. They can choose to spend whatever they've chosen to spend today. They can decide to change their mind tomorrow. As soon as she gets an EHCP, the first £6,000 of provision in that EHCP has to be spent from their budget. That's why schools are reticent about saying, yes, we need an EHCP, because they're thinking, where are we going to find that first £6,000 from? You know, what's the head going to say when I say we've got another EHCP, we've got to find another £6,000? So it's just worth knowing, I think, where that drive from the SENDCo is coming from, and then using that. All right, I think Sarah's absolutely right, and I do refusal to assessors and refusal to issue appeals all the time. The key evidence is she's not making progress, and the gap between her and her peers is getting wider. So what you want to be asking the SENDCo in mediation is, so are you suggesting that you haven't been doing everything you should have been doing previously? Of course not. Of course you've been doing as much as you can. You know, you're a good school. Of course you're going to have been doing everything that you can, and still my child is falling further and further and further behind. You might say you can meet needs, but the evidence says different. If you could meet needs, the gap wouldn't be getting wider between her and her peers. I think your other evidence is that if she's 2 years behind by year 4, if she didn't do her SATs, she's not on trajectory to do her SATs in year 6. She's not on a trajectory to make mainstream for secondary school. And that's your argument to the local authority. You say to the local authority, if we carry on without an EHCP by year 6, we're going to be getting one, and we're going to be looking at special school. If you put an EHCP in now with the appropriate provision, my aim is for her to go to mainstream school, and I think with an EHCP now she'll get there. You can change your mind down the line, but you know, your argument now is I want to work with you, local authority, to keep her in mainstream, so please provide an EHCP. Those are the two arguments I'd use.
And don't be under any illusion, anybody here, that when they say we're not putting your child in for SATs, that it's anything to do with your child. Everything to do with the fact they don't want their percentages down.
And it's true. At 2 years behind in year 4, if she's still 2 years, if she's still working at year 2 level by year 5, and she's still working at year 2 level by year 6, that's going to make mainstream secondary start to become impossible. So you know, it's a real argument that get the provision in now. You know, it is in the local authority's best interest, and I think if you those would be the best arguments. But of course, I think Sarah's alluded to this before, whatever stage you focus on the mediation, but don't sit there expecting it to go in your favour. You know, I know we all hope it will, but prepare yourself for a no, and prepare yourself to appeal. Because then if it doesn't mean you don't give it 110%, you do, but then at least if it is a no, you're kind of ahead of the curve. You know, you're ready. You've already thought through what the next stage is. You might have read our blog on appealing refusal to assess. You might have already started to look at the form and to think about it. Whereas what we find is parents that 100% just focus on mediation's going to say yes, mediation's going to say yes. I don't need to think about anything else because mediation's going to say yes. I know it is, I know it is, I know it is. Mediation says no, and they're absolutely devastated. And it takes them 6 weeks to even recover and pick themselves up. And then they've only got another couple of weeks to get the appeal in. So
and it's the big difference. I'm on a mediation tomorrow supporting a family, and the mediation document that I've put together evidences the child's special educational needs, evidences the special educational provision that the child has already had identified. And we cross-reference all of this to the law. And I was speaking to the parent this evening and making awareness of, you know, if mediation fails, yes, that's not what you want, or what anybody wants, but that document that you spent that time on then becomes your reasons for appeal, which makes the appeal far less painful. It takes away a lot of that anxiety that you're then thinking, oh my God, no, now I've got to do, now what do I do? You know, how do I state my evidence? How do I present this? How do I know how I'm going to evidence this? So it's like anything else with this process. All the preparation that you do will pay back at the next stage.
And mediation should happen in 4 to 6 weeks.
Right,
Sometimes parents apply for mediation and local authorities say, no, we haven't got time. Mediation is voluntary, so they can't be forced. Sometimes local authorities say yes and then cancel at the last minute. You know, it's not, mediation is not set in stone at all, but 4 to 6 weeks mediation should be happening. We've got blogs on mediation. We've got a webinar on an EHC Needs Assessment. I know you've already done the EHC Needs Assessment, had it refused, but it talks you through what the legal test is and where to find evidence. It would be useful.